Hello YouTubers, this is Atilla Yeşilada reporting from Istanbul and marking a historic day, well at least for Turkish economy and health industry. Yesterday, our Minister of Health, Mr. Fahrettin Koca, finally spilled the beans. Turkey is reporting 28,000 new COVID cases a day. For the last 5 or 6 months, the Health Ministry, for reasons unbeknownst to me, has made an artificial distinction between cases and patients, patients presumably being those hospitalized, so very severe cases, and refused to reveal the daily tally of cases. According to World Health Organization standards, anyone who is diagnosed with COVID in one of these tests is a case and a patient. They are the same thing, and they ought to be reported properly. This is very important because if you only report patients, which are obviously a subsection of cases, people are fooled into a false complacency. Well, that lie has ended. With 28,000 cases per day, Turkey is breaking the European record. Congratulations. But I'm not going to talk about Turkey's health crisis today because I have broadcast that in at least 2 videos over the last few months, but the world wasn't listening. The world believed the lies told by Turkey's health ministry. Instead, I'm going to mark the beginning of Turkey's winter recession today. Yes, recession has started. The data, of course, which comes with a lag, is going to show the recession in a month or two, but the Turkish economy is going to decline or shrink in December, January, and February. It would probably not recover at least until April. April is the date when our President, Mr. Erdogan, promised the vaccine to be widely available. Now, there is a lot of contradictory reporting on vaccines. I don't think they're a panacea for the outbreak. Not that I question their efficacy or the fact that our health experts around the world have discovered good vaccines, but unfortunately distribution is extremely costly and logistically troublesome. Therefore, if we trust the vaccine to get rid of this virus, that is going to be the story of the winter of 2021. Even before Mr. Fahrettin Koca's historic revelation, Turkish economy was sliding. It was slowing. It wasn't in recession, but it was slowing. Unfortunately, even though I make money out of YouTube, I have very limited facilities, so I'm going to show this to you with Turkish language graphics, and you'll have to trust my translation. The most important data for Turkish exports is the economic conditions in Europe, because 50% of Turkish exports go to EU. Another 30% go to MENA, that's Middle East and North Africa. But Iran is devastated by the sanctions, and of course, COVID cases rising to 14,000 as of yesterday, I believe. And excluding Qatar, all of the Arab countries are mad at Turkey for one reason or other. So there are official or concealed embargoes against Turkish goods and services, which means that if EU stops, so will Turkish exports. And this is the IHS Market Eurozone November preliminary composite PMI. Oh boy, I can still make these long English sentences. You see how sharply it dropped over the last few months, and the EU is going to have a winter recession. So will England. Will have one of the deepest recessions over the last 300 years. This means that there is really no hope for exports for Turkey. That's not one avenue through which Turkey can grow. What you see here is Turkey's real sector confidence index. Once again, that's from November. This is sort of like PMI-like index that covers the manufacturing industry. It's in Turkish, I admit, but look at the right-hand column. You will see, with the exception of one, all the arrows pointing downwards and in a big way. These are the expected volume of production and various order indices. That is, export orders, domestic orders, etc., etc. And the only blue arrow is employment, which simply means at a time when the manufacturing industry is receiving fewer orders from abroad and at home and is planning to shrink its production volume, it's stuck with an excess labor, which of course, as you know, means that they are going to shed labor. Unemployment is going to increase over the next few months. Vis-a-vis unemployment, Turkey hasn't yet declared a nationwide lockdown, but it has partial curfews and quarantines, and all the restaurant and cafe houses are forbidden to serve indoors. The workforce in these constitute roughly 2 million people, or 8 to 10% of the active labor force. Suddenly, these people have become unemployed overnight. They are extremely poor, along with the entrepreneurs or the owners of these enterprises, and the government doesn't really have the wherewithal to support these people with direct income infusions as they do in Europe and the United States. They do receive some welfare assistance, but that's like $150 a month, and you would admit that it would be almost impossible to survive for a family of 3 or 4 on $150 a month, even in Turkey. And these are the sectoral PMIs, once again covering November, again in Turkish, but we see services rise very mildly, but retail and construction going into the I'm really sorry, going into the decline. And remember, these indices don't cover the partial closures, so they reflect a situation before the restrictions have started. I am fairly sure that in the coming month, these confidence indices will also go down. I want to show you one more graphic before I analyze the situation. As I'm sure you all would agree with me, confidence is the main engine that drives household consumption and private sector fixed investment. If people believe, economically speaking, tomorrow will be better than today, they will borrow and spend, or they will spend their savings. The companies, even if their production volume and demand is low now, if they believe tomorrow is going to bring a higher volume of demand, they're going to keep their factories operating, they're going to keep their labor force employed, and even maybe, expand their capacity. So, how are Turks feeling about the economy? Well, here is the latest survey from Polyacademics, I believe. Again in Turkish, but the question is, what is Turkey's biggest problem? 30% say economic stress, another 13% say lack of jobs, and 22% say pandemic. So economic distress and the fear of the pandemic are the problem of Turkey, according to roughly 60% of the participants. And obviously, these people are not going to consume with a huge zest. They will, of course, consume, but they'll be careful and they'll spare their financial resources for the bad days to come in the winter. Furthermore, once Mr. Fahrettin Koca announced that there are 28,000 cases, which means that the virus is spreading rapidly throughout Turkey, Mr. Erdogan really has no choice but to declare a national curfew, as many European nations did. This is an economically very costly solution, as governments all over the world are discovering, but according to health experts, it is really the only way to dampen down the spread of the virus. So in a week, Turkey will probably have a 2-week national lockdown, perhaps even a 4-week one. It could be staggered. That means we could be open during the week and closed over weekends. I don't know how that helps, but that's sometimes what they do. But in any case, outside consumption, movie attendance, footfall in shopping malls are all going to drop. We had a similar situation in the second quarter of this year when the quarterly GDP declined by 11%. Experience across the world shows us that the second wave and the resulting closures are less costly because obviously businesses learn to innovate around it, and a lot of the business has shifted to e-platforms. So I don't expect an 11% decline, and I don't want to give any numbers, but starting in December, January, and accelerating in February, so on and so forth, Turkish economy will shrink. And that's going to make existing problems worse. The existing problems are a budget deficit, which is roughly 4% of GDP. Now there will be fewer tax revenues and substantially higher health and social welfare spending. And when the government tries to finance that by borrowing, of course there will be crowding out, which is banks lending to the state, but not to the private sector, as a result of which, while the government does maintain some kind of social assistance to the poorest sections of the society, private sector activity will decline. And finally, since the beginning of the year, the total loan volume, that is, loans to consumers as well as to corporates, have risen by 40%. And now, a lot of the small businesses and at least 2 million additional unemployed are coming online. Is there any way this credit is going to be paid back? Unfortunately, no. Which means Turkish banks will be saddled with a very large and increasing quantity of bad loans, which is going to further curtail their appetite to make new loans. That's called tightening of financial conditions. In summary, the fear of pandemic, unemployment, tighter financial conditions, on top of which a tighter monetary policy and currency instability spells a deep recession for Turkish economy. And this is going to have political repercussions. Turkey may have to resort to early elections in the second quarter of 2021, but this is something I'm going to be talking about in the upcoming videos. I want to thank you for watching another Real Turkey channel video. I would encourage you to subscribe, but more importantly, to share this video with people who may be interested in Turkey for one reason or other. Your help is appreciated. Atilla Yaşar'a saying goodbye from a sad and virus-ridden Istanbul.